You had 3 hours. That's great. Good? Okay. I feel like I need to pull this a little further. What's going on here? This feels a little different than typical. This is why. Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call the Committee of the Whole to order for the City of Bloomington. And Madam Clerk, if we could have roll call.
Councilmember Curtis.
I am here.
Councilmember Boland.
Here.
Councilmember Motney.
Here.
Councilmember Dannenberger.
Here.
Councilmember Becker. Councilmember Hendricks.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Here.
Mayor Milwaukee.
Here. The next item on the agenda is recognition and an appointment. So we have a proclamation for Pitt-Hopkins Syndrome Awareness Day as requested by the Administration Department. And I believe we did this last year for City Manager Houston, correct? Okay, awesome. So whereas Pitt-Hopkins syndrome is a rare and severe neurological disorder caused by a spontaneous mutation of the 18th chromosome, and whereas Pitt-Hopkins syndrome is characterized by developmental delays, moderate to severe intellectual disability, breathing problems, epilepsy or recurrent seizures, gastrointestinal issues, and distinctive facial features. And whereas approximately 2,000 people worldwide have been diagnosed with Pitt-Hopkins syndrome, however, given the fact that the discovery of the gene happened just a few years ago, there are likely many others out there that remain undiagnosed. And whereas, given its rarity, online support groups play a pivotal role for individuals, families, and their loved ones to connect and increase awareness. And whereas the Pitt-Hopkins Research Foundation celebrates on September 18, 2023 as the 10th Annual International Pitt-Hopkins Syndrome Awareness Day to raise awareness and funding for Pitt-Hopkins research. And this date was chosen to bring attention to the fact that it is a disorder caused by a spontaneous mutation on the 18th chromosome, and whereas the Pitt-Hopkins Research Foundation is an all-volunteer organization of families and professionals dedicated to finding a cure for Pitt-Hopkins syndrome through the funding of research, education, and advocacy. And its board of directors is currently comprised of parents of children and adults with Pitt-Hopkins syndrome. And now, therefore, I, Mboka Mulambwe, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, do hereby proclaim September 18, 2023 as Pitt-Hopkins Syndrome Awareness Day in Bloomington, Illinois, and commend its observance to all residents of our community. Thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
I would. Thank you, Mayor, and to the council for adopting this. This is something that's near and dear to me. My grandson, Caden, has Pitt-Hopkins. It's extremely rare, major developmental challenges. Any family that has a Pitt-Hopkins child will be the caregiver to the grave. And so very proud of my daughter, my son-in-law, Mark, Caden's younger brother, Corbin, who is a tremendous help, and very much appreciate the recognition for this Pitt-Hopkins proclamation. So thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a recognition of firefighter Vernon Dickey on the completion of his one-year probation as requested by the fire department. My notes here say to ask Chief West to come forward, but he's already there. Always ahead of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager. Thank you for allowing me to be in front of you tonight to present one of our newest firefighters who just recently came on probation. Firefighter paramedic Vernon Dickey joined the fire department on September 6, 2022. Shortly after that, he attended the Illinois Fire Service Fire Academy, where he graduated from that on October 28, 2022. Upon completion of the Fire Academy, Vernon was assigned to B shift and began his station rotations, working through the Bloomington Probationary Task Manual. July of this year, I received recommendations from all of his officers that Vernon be appointed as a full-time firefighter upon completion of his year probation on September 6, 2023. Vernon, a little bit about him, he grew up in Hayworth, attended Hayworth High School, or the Hayworth school system. While in high school, Vernon went through the fire science program at the BACC. So he's one of a few handful now that we've gotten from that program, which is a good program. While the BACC program is why Vernon decided to get into the fire EMS business. After high school, Vernon attended Heartland College and obtained his paramedic license. Vernon volunteered at both Randolph Township Fire Protection District and Bloomington Township Fire Protection District as both firefighter and EMS provider while obtaining his paramedic license. He continues to volunteer at Randolph Township. Vernon also worked 2 years at the DeWitt County EMS. On his days off, Vernon enjoys hiking, camping, and kayaking. Vernon is engaged with his girlfriend Rachel, and he's looking forward to many more years at the Bloomington Fire Department. I'm pleased to present Vernon Dickey.
Would you like to say a few words?
My time so far at the Bloomington Fire Department has been wonderful, and like Chief once said, I look forward to completing many more years of service.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your service. Next, we're going to move on to public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We received no email public comment, nor did anyone register to speak in person.
Okay, thank you. And now we're going to move to the consent agenda. And is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll approve.
Okay. Move, okay. Move
I'll
by-
make a second.
Okay, Councilmember Ward and then Bolin. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Kearns,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Dannenberger,
Yes.
Councilmember Hendricks,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Okay, the item passes, no names to announce. Next, we're going to move to the regular agenda, a presentation on early childhood regional needs assessment from birth to 5, Illinois, as requested by the Administration Department. And I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Gleason for some introductory remarks.
Thank you, Mayor, and Council, and more so to the community, which is why we are presenting in this fashion. Alderperson Hendricks actually approached me about this program and asked what are the different venues, not necessarily a committee of the whole presentation, but what are the different venues to get this information out. It truly does align. When you hear here in a few minutes presentation, it does align with the initiatives of council, trying to be more involved in our young residents' lives. Our youth mentoring program at the high school and at the college age is an example of this, but this is going to dive even bigger, deeper, and at a younger age, where we try to purposely and intentionally step into the lives of families with younger children and try to set them on the right course. I'm going to read a quick bio of Carol, and if you want to work your way up to the mic there with the spotlight. Carol Weisheit is the Birth to 5 manager for Region 17, which is what we fall in. It covers McLean County, Livingston, Logan, and DeWitt. She has been a resident of Normal for more than 40 years with her husband Ralph, who is an ISU professor of criminal justice. Carol's lifelong passion is the equitable access and affordability for early childhood services for children and families in the never-ending pursuit of high-quality teachers and their continued education. And before I turn this to Carol, Alderperson Hendricks, I mean, this really is yours. I'll give you a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'll be really brief because I want to make sure that Carol has enough time to present to all of us, but really appreciate the city manager and the mayor giving us this opportunity. I had the opportunity to meet with Carol back in July, I think, and she presented this information to me and the real need for why the community as a whole also needs to hear this. This is an initiative through the state of Illinois, and she's going to go through how each region of our state really got to dive deep with different stakeholders and community groups to really look at quantitative data, but also the qualitative data that comes from those stakeholders and families and parents. And as an educator, while I love the education side of this, it's also an economic issue as well. If we want to have the vibrant workforce in our community to be able to expand business and to be able to devote to those companies, we need to be able to provide childcare and services to them so that parents have those opportunities. So once again, I really appreciate this opportunity, and I'll hand it over to Carol.
Thank you, Cody. I'm going to tell this down a little bit because I'm not as tall as the firefighters. Okay. Thank you so much, Mayor and City Council, for allowing us to be here tonight. I've brought with me Becky Thacker, who is our family and community engagement specialist, and we're just thrilled to be here tonight. So next slide, please. We are here as a result of, throughout the state, as a result of a 2021 Illinois Commission on Early Childhood Care and Education Funding Commission report. That was a mouthful. What they found in that report was that there are inequities in the system throughout Illinois, not only for access to care, but also just the structural setup in our state for early childhood funding. So we're going to share with you tonight some of the findings that we have done or found throughout the last year as we work with two councils that Becky will talk about in just a moment. And so next slide. So here we are in the central part of the state. As was said, we cover DeWitt, Livingston, Logan, and McLean. And in our region, we cover the same as the ROE, the Regional Office of Education. And 39 of the regions, you can see how the map is bolded around certain counties. That represents one of 39 counties, or 39 regions across the state who are set up the same way we are. So there are lovely mugshots on the right, mine and Becky's, and Martha Saldana Cortez, who's our magnificent admin who was unable to come tonight. So next slide, please. The first thing that we looked at when we looked, I'm sorry, Becky. I always do this to Becky. I'm so sorry.
She gets on her roll. Yes, again, my name is Becky Thacker, and I just wanted to kind of take a moment to look at our mission and to highlight certain aspects of it. And one in particular is that amplify input from communities. So this is a community-based project, infrastructure, and that it's here to build and sustain that equitable access for families and their children, and what that means for all families in Illinois. Next slide, please. In addition to our mission is our vision, and that is to reimagine that more equitable early childhood and education system and amplify that community voice with families at the center, and really creating that from the ground up aspect for children, because the families are those that are taking care of these children and living within the state of Illinois and raising their children. Back to Carol.
We did, next slide, please. And Lakeisha Smith is here. She is one of our family council members who is gonna talk a little bit about her role as a family council member and what it meant being on the family council. Lakeisha.
Good evening, council. I wanted to say, as a council member for Birth to Five, Illinois, has been a wonderful experience. It has offered me and my family the opportunity to have parent voice. We have a 5-year-old son who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3.5. And it was a journey trying to navigate services for him and being a parent. Learning what it meant to be a parent to a child with special needs, and also trusting the process of the professionals that are in his life through that journey. I'm very grateful for having the support of Birth to Five, Illinois, the support of this awesome team and the parents to provide a space for us to look at better, equitable ways to provide services to children in the state of Illinois. Next slide, please. There's also the Action Council. This council is comprised of different providers within our communities. They are professionals that are in the early learning childhood scape that also look at more equitable ways and opportunities to advance early childhood within the state of Illinois. At this table are teachers, there are principals, there are early child care providers, and administrators. So this is a wonderful team of people that are actively advocating for families like me that are actively seeking services.
Thank you, Lakeisha. Next slide. So throughout the last few months, both councils met twice a month, and as we looked at the quantitative data, we looked at census data. We looked at ICAM, or the Illinois Early Childhood Asset Map data, which is out of the U of I, and also data from INCRA, which is the Illinois Network of Child Care Resource and Referral Agencies, and we are a department of INCRA. We also carried out focus groups throughout the region, talking to people, groups of teachers, group of directors, group of home providers, and interviews. We did some interviews with circuit court judges, and then we also did a survey with HR directors to find out what their thoughts, and all of those surrounding the issues in early childhood and how it affects an individual or their workplace, or in the case of HR, their workforce. Next slide, please. So within our demographics, it doesn't surprise you that we cover over 3,000 miles in this region. We're big and broad. And as we look at the data for children birth to 5, 72% are white. That's not true for McLean County. We are upwards of 80%, because we have a much more diverse population here. Some of the priority populations that we looked at, and these are populations, whether it's children with special needs, homelessness, which we looked at, poverty, and families that face barriers based on language. So we specifically honed in on those three because those were the voices that we were hearing as we were collecting data throughout our region. Next slide. The other issue that we looked at were community collaborations. There's a specific definition for what community collaboration is, and the definition has, in order to meet the definition, the group has to not only be a group of stakeholders, but they also have to be coordinating services. And the only group within our region that met that definition was the McLean County AOK network, or All Our Kids network, because they coordinate services through a website called IRIS, so that providers can put up their services, and then individuals can input families that might need help in a variety of areas, and then they can get connected via that website. We would love to see more either AOK networks or other networks throughout our region that do that same thing. There are other looser kind of knit groups throughout our region that we looked at: DeWitt Mental Health Coalition, the McLean and Livingston County Local Area Interagency Council, which does early intervention, and that's special services for children birth to 3. But unfortunately, none of those meet the definition of a form of collaboration like McLean County AOK. Next slide. One of the big topics that we looked at was the early childhood education and care programs. We had one of our members of the council say, you know, some businesses have information hubs. Why isn't there a hub for families to go to? Which we agree with. But as you look at that map, you can see that the majority of child care centers and child care homes are located within Bloomington Normal, not even outside of McLean County, but just Bloomington Normal. And then there are smatterings you can see throughout the region. The squares represent, depending on their color, where Head Start programs are, where early intervention, early Head Start, and then prevention initiative, as well as Preschool for All and Preschool for All expansion. And those are the public school programs, Preschool for All and Preschool for All expansion. Next slide, and I think Becky's gonna step in again.
Thank you again. We definitely looked at the early care and early at the education workforce, and looked at quantitative data with our Action Council members. Of course, many of them working in the field already understood the insufficiencies with the workforce. First of all, pay is very low for those caring for children, especially in the more community-based programs. We also looked at the workforce with our family council, and as you can see, some of one of the quotes that came up was that some people don't understand that caring for a baby is difficult. We heard many times from our Action Council members of all the work that they put into hiring and all the stress of going into hiring those in the workforce, only for them to work a day and realize how much stress that work is. So that quality does suffer because of that. Next slide, please. So therefore, we did look at other aspects of the data. One was the family and caregiver voice. So definitely amplifying that aspect for our families through our family council as well as through those focus groups. A lot of the conversation was about the expense of childcare. And for many families, it's just easier for one parent to stay home, for it to be a one-income family. As you can see from the quote, that concern was very heavily through a lot of our conversation, was because of the access to childcare, whether you can get a spot, can you even afford it? And if you can't afford it, how long is the wait list? That was a conversation we had a lot through a lot of our surveys and our focus groups. Next slide, please.
We did come up with key strengths in this region. One is we have a very strong resource and referral agency here. They cover 3 out of 4 of our counties. They cover DeWitt, Livingston, and McLean. We heard over and over how wonderful the service is to the providers and the families in order to get, particularly on the CCAP program, which is the Child Care Assistance Program, which is federal money that comes through the state. And then the state disseminates it to working families so they can afford childcare. We also have wonderful universities and community colleges throughout our region that really provide a lot of important opportunities for partnerships within early childhood. And then we also have relatively low unemployment. But in spite of those key strengths, we did find a lot of needs and recommendations. You all have a folder, and that folder has an executive summary. And but I will go through several of those so that you can hear what we found. Next slide, please. Sorry, go back, please. I was going to skip over the needs. These are only 3 of the needs that we have within our region. One is to address the shortage of the well-trained and well-compensated workforce. As Becky said, the pay is low for a community-based program. So these are the child care programs that are outside of the public school programs that are providing full-time or almost full-time. They're providing a full-day program for a child who qualifies. The pay for public school teachers is based on their salary scale. But in community-based programs, that's not true. And so the average across our region for a full-time community-based child care worker was $27,000 and some change. So it's not even a living wage. And if you add on to that, as Becky said, a lot of times the workers within our field are they themselves eligible for public, service like food stamps, and, like SNAP and other programs that they might qualify for. The other need that we have is to expand the birth to 5 programming, particularly the infant through to age 3 programming, the infant and toddler, and particularly childcare in rural areas. The other need we have is to create additional affordable childcare options for families. The other 2 that I want to mention is that came up over and over is that about promoting local and regional awareness of already existing programs and resources for families. We heard over and over, parents didn't know. I didn't know I could do that. And in fact, one of our family council members who was a young mother herself, all of our family council members have to be parenting children under the age of 8. And one of them said, I had no idea. I have an infant. I better start looking. And we said, yeah. Get on a wait list. She had no idea. So that came up over and over. The other need that we saw was the need for Spanish speakers in the workforce. That includes classroom staff, home visitors, developmental screening staff, as well as therapists. Next slide, please. So within each of those 5 needs, we also had recommendations, and 3 of those are again, to ensure those salaries and benefits reflect the educational and training achievements of the ECEC staff that are competitive with non-ECEC fields, because there's a lot of discrepancy between, the work that they do versus the work, say of a nurse. And the salaries are completely, out of sync. That expanding birth to 5 programming, transportation and childcare in rural areas, and then re-examine the income limits for the CCAP, the Child Care Assistance Program, to make childcare more affordable for more families. Because once parents reach a certain level of the federal poverty level, they literally lose their childcare, and it's called the childcare cliff, and there's nothing. You either go from having subsidized or boom, you're full pay. And I don't know if you're aware, but within our region, in McLean County, infant care is upwards of $300 to $400 a week. So you're talking about, $1,200 a month. Becky did the math a lot quicker than I did. $1,200 a month. And so those issues are prevalent everywhere within our region. Another recommendation we had was to, again, address the Spanish speakers by maybe recruiting Spanish-speaking high school students, specifically those earning the Illinois State Seal of Biliteracy while they're in high school. And then again, the recommendation to broaden public awareness of state and federal funded early childhood and early care program services and resources. Next slide. Oh, we forgot to take that one out. We closed our action council, so next, please. As I said, we are a department of Illinois Network of Child Care Resource and Referral Agencies, and this past year, our funding came from Illinois State Board of Education as well as IDHS. Next slide. So there's my email, our Facebook group, please join us. and follow what we're doing, as well as you can go on our website, Bertha 5 Illinois /Region 17, and subscribe to our newsletter that comes out every other month. So thank you so much for your attention, and we'd be happy to answer any questions or field any concerns that you have.
Question, Councilmember Crumpler. Thank you, Mayor. Becky and Carol, thank you so much for this talk this evening. Your work has the potential, to impact the social futures of these kids and families. I'm so impressed by the work you do. I wonder, I heard you refer over and over to rural areas. There was a huge need. Is there federal and perhaps private money, in the form of grants that your group can go after to help increase, the services in these rural areas?
Well, Bertha 5 individually cannot go after the funds. However, we are, as Bertha 5, we have grant funds for things like the collaborations. If communities would like to get some people together and start a collaboration, we can do that. The other issue is there will be some state funding coming down. I'm not exactly sure when it's going to be announced, but it will be for infrastructure and for buildings. And so as soon as we get that information, we will shoot it out, because I know I've been talking to District 807 because they're interested. Of course, those kinds of things don't happen overnight, but we're not talking about solutions that are going to happen overnight. We want them to affect the future of our children and families, because we want them to stay here in Illinois.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Ward.
I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in this context, but what you could envision us as a council doing to support your efforts, because I think they're worthy efforts and it's definitely needed. I've got a 22-year-old and a 19-year-old now, but I can remember a time where I was paying more than my mortgage for childcare. And I did the math, $27,000 a year is less than $13 an hour.
Right.
You can earn more fast food
Right.
for that. So we're missing something, and we're smart people in this community, in this country. We ought to be able to do better. Other countries do a lot better.
Yes, they do. I would totally agree with that. And the issue for early childhood, particularly when you talk about the wages, it's across the United States. It's not just our state problem or our local level problem. As far as what you could do, we would love for you to help disseminate information about us. The other thing is, starting in October, we're going to be into year 2. We're going to be looking at our recommendations, and the Family Council and the Action Council are going to have to put their heads together and decide what of our recommendations we can attack locally, and building an action plan around those. So when we get to that point, we may be knocking on your door to help in other ways. We're going to be developing work groups so that both members from both Family and Action Council can get together to put their heads together to think about what ways can we actually get this recommendation up and running. So because we haven't done that yet, we're not exactly sure what we're going to need as far as maybe from the City Council, but you can bet you'll be on a list that will be right there every time we have a meeting.
And maybe you're already doing this, but I love to break down silos, and
Yes.
It seems like there's some natural affinity between your kind of needs assessment and the community health needs assessment process. So maybe you're already working together, but if not, I'd encourage that, because
Yes.
it seems like a health need.
Yes, in fact, one of our Action Council members is the director of the AOK network, which is, out of the health department, and they're undergoing their regional needs assessment as well. But certainly the full public health department report is something we're well aware of, and we are working closely with them, both to get the word out and to get advice, and we're part of their meetings, and then we have the director on our Action Council, so we're in very close contact. Yes. Because you're right, it is a health issue, because child development, it's a health issue. Because if we're not providing children the very best care, in those first 5 years, we can predict what's going to happen later down the road. And I know you've probably heard that before, but juvenile delinquency, teen pregnancy, special needs if they're not addressed early. So yeah, just a whole lot of problems we could help prevent early. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for
Thank you so
your
much.
presentation and for the important work that you're doing. I think many of us on this stage have had to deal with these issues, the issue of childcare, where you have to make some pretty significant decisions in terms of what you're going to do. And I think some families have the luxury of being able to pay that much money in childcare, and others do not, and that's where things fall through the cracks. But I do agree that taking care of children's needs is incredibly important for the future of a community. So appreciate the work that you're doing, and we'll be happy to assist, particularly in terms of spreading the word about the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Next item on the agenda is an update on the Public Works reorganization as requested by the Administration Department. And I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Gleason for his introduction.
Thank you, Mayor, and to Mayor, Council, and to the community. This is something that probably doesn't get a lot of attention, but when we talk about Public Works in its previous form, it received so much attention. So much was dependent on the success of the Public Works Department. Knew that the idea of adding a third Assistant Public Works Director would address the 3 divisions. So this conversation that Deputy City Manager Juergens brought before Council for an action item that was approved a couple of weeks ago is one where we're talking about better to best. And, it even gets better than the reorganization that was approved by Council. But this is one that we want to keep as a front burner item. We know that many of the things that fall, to Council in dealing with constituents, it really, they're Public Works related. We get that. And so there's major emphasis on this. We also know that there are major infrastructure projects that are in play and some that are on the horizon, the very near future. And when I just mentioned that all of this just fell into place and has gotten even better, you're going to meet the actual leaders of these 3 departments in the newly organized or reorganized Public Works. But wait, there's more. It doesn't just fall to the number ones in the individual departments. There's promotions to number 2 positions or title and responsibility additions to people that stepped up into these roles in the individual departments. So truly, I'm hoping people listen, watch the committee, the whole presentation that the Deputy City Manager is going to do in a couple of minutes, because we're truly excited. We really feel like, we're shifting from 3rd gear to 4th gear, and there's more to come. So I'm going to turn this over for you, Jeff, to make the actual announcements, but it's an exciting day. So thank you.
Thank you, City Manager and Council. If you could go to the next slide. I've got the honor to introduce our new leadership team tonight in these areas. The first is Mose Ricky. Mose, if you could stand. Mose has been with the city since 2020 as the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation. But before joining the city, he spent most of his career in the Chicago area, where he worked in management level positions for nearly 20 years. He's known in the city as an innovator, a motivator, and someone that can get our projects across the finish line. Somebody that's truly impressed us, and we've had a lot of pleasure working with him. So Mose is going to lead up our Public Works Department, and he'll be around. Ed, if you could stand. Ed Andrews is a licensed engineer who's got 30 years of experience working with public infrastructure, including water systems. Until we grabbed him, he was the Peoria operations manager for infrastructure engineering. Before that, in his distinguished tenure, he served as a city engineer, he served as a county engineer, he served as an engineer manager, and as a resident engineer for IDOT. We believe his experience is going to be instrumental in helping the city move forward the water infrastructure master plan. So we're very excited to have both Ed and Mo started in their positions today. And finally, when we brought this initiative forward a couple of weeks ago, we announced this, but Kevin Cothe, Kevin, if you wouldn't mind standing, he's going to move to be the director of our new Department of Operations and Engineering Services. Kevin started with the city in 1988 as an engineering traffic technician. He rose up the ranks and served as our city engineer for 11 years until becoming the director of public works in 2020. We're excited to have Kevin go back to his roots in engineering to help out the next generation of our city engineering staff. Also here tonight, we've got Brent Lucian. He served as the operations manager for the water department. But truly, he has been the number 2 in that department. And when there's been a vacancy in leadership there, he has stepped up to serve and be the director of that department. So we did not change a lot with his job description, but we did change his job title to more accurately reflect his role in the department. And so his title is now Assistant Director for the Water Department. So also, not here, but I'll get to this in a second, in this next slide, if you could go on to the next one. Wanted to update you, it's only been a couple of weeks, but as we've gotten this plan into place, we've already made a couple of tweaks, a couple of things that we thought were worth updating the council on. One is, as we met with the leadership team for the Operations and Engineering Services Department, we realized, or we came to think that maybe there's not going to be a need for an assistant director there. We were originally planning that. So we put that on hold, and we're going to continue to evaluate what the actual needs are within that department. We did the same thing with the Public Works Department. We met with the leadership there, tried to evaluate what the true needs are. And what we determined is that we need to bring back the operations manager. Colleen Winterland, who's been with the cities since 2006, is going, and she served as the interim operations manager in the past, has a lot of experience. She knows the operations like the back of her hand in Public Works. She's going to step up and be that operations manager for Public Works. We're still going to have a superintendent of solid waste, and we're going to have a superintendent of streets and sewers. That's what Colleen was serving in, superintendent of streets and sewers. So we're going to recruit for that position. We used to have 2 assistants. Each superintendent would have an assistant superintendent. So we're going to try the model for a while of just having 1 assistant and see if we can work with that level of staffing. So this is something that'll constantly be under evaluation and will change as we need to make sure the operations run smooth. Next slide. Just while we're talking about this, we thought it'd be a good opportunity to give you a preview and an update of some of the things going on within these departments. Next slide. First is, as you know, we've been working on the water rate study. We anticipate bringing this to you forward in October, late October, maybe early November. With this plan, we are going to have a component to it that recognizes those with economic needs. So the rate that comes forward will have that component with you, and we do plan on bringing that to you within the next couple of months. Again, this is going to be needed for the water infrastructure plan that we've talked about several times. Could be up to $350 million to help pay for those costs. Next slide. We're also going to be bringing forward a presentation on hydraulic modeling within the next couple of months. This is going to be for those adding detention basins in different areas of the city to continue to help address the flooding that occurred and that does occur. Next slide. Wanted to highlight a couple of things also related to the Locust Colton project. Just kind of an update here. A lot of phases have been complete. We're in the middle of construction on phases 4 and 5, and we've got 8 and 9 left, and we're going to be bringing a design contract forward in October. Next slide. wanted to highlight some of the great work that our internal crews do. These are some pictures of our crews replacing street panels on concrete streets. This was done on Airport Road recently, and this is something that we do for some of our concrete roads. And we look and see whether or not we evaluate these all the time, but this is one of the tools in the toolbox of doing this type of replacement. Next slide. Pavement preservation. This is the first time we've tried the slurry seal. This is a new technique that we've been very excited about. We've completed 5.8 lane miles this year of the slurry mix. We've gotten very positive responses from that, and so we're happy about that. We've done about 4 miles of the chip and seal. Next slide. Just thought this, we hear about potholes a lot. So far this year, we have had reported and filled 616 potholes. And again, this is our internal crews that are doing that type of work. Next slide. And we put down 2,394 tons of hot asphalt for patching. And again, that's our internal crews doing that work. Again, just some examples of what our crews can do. Next slide. Our fall-free bulk pickup will be October 2nd through the 13th. Thought we would use this as an opportunity to say that leaves will be falling soon. Every time that the leaves fall, we get into also picking up leaves, picking up bulk, picking up brush. So we're going to be rolling out our plan to do that within the next few months. Next slide. Just an update on our engineering division. We are nearly fully staffed. We're out there recruiting for a civil engineer too. And as we've talked about, we've put a renewed focus on training our newly hired staff to improve those deliverables. Next slide. This is something you'll probably be getting updates on throughout the year. This is OpenGov. This is the platform. It's basically a portal into our workflows and systems that will allow the public to apply online. They can also see the workflows, and this improves a lot of efficiencies within the city. We've got some of it up and going. For example, for these departments, you can go online and get your dumpster permit. You can do your fireworks permit, there's zoning verifications. Eventually, a lot of the different things that you need from the city, you'll be able to use this portal to apply for, pay for, and track the progress of your application. So we're really excited about that, and that, like I said, will be rolling out over the next few months. And that's all I had. Again, just wanted to give you a quick update on some of the things going on within these departments.
Questions or comments? Okay, Councilmember Kearns.
I guess since we are taking this opportunity to provide another update, if you could maybe re-explain or kind of restate how this change isn't creating silos to maybe allay fears of things that have happened in the past where, the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing between the two water and street and public works departments.
Do you want to take it to everybody too?
I'll let you piggyback off my response, but truly, we believe that there is no one more impatient than me. When we're talking about the pressures and the comments and the concerns that I receive directly from the community, but more so my bosses hear from the constituents. This is a well thought out, very efficient, we believe, plan. We have revisited some of the challenges of the past, to your point, and we have, honestly, we have a second deputy city manager that has direct reports of, in Jeff's case, 6 departments, that this is going to be a focus, that he makes sure that all the departments that report to him, and then the ones that report to myself and to the deputy city manager, just increased emphasis and focus that we do not slide into the silos that I think were to our detriment in the past. It's not going to happen, and I appreciate the question. Jeff?
Yeah, I guess I would have a couple comments to that. First is the old Public Works Department was so large that I think there were a lot of silos just within that department. And there was a lot of bureaucracy related to that. So I think we've cut a lot of that out and we've really simplified it and streamlined it. The other thing I would say is to make sure that the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. We are going to have to make sure, and this is part of it, that these directors are meeting frequently, that there is a lot of communication, and that there is a lot of interaction between everyone. We've titled, the Department of Operations and Engineering Services is the acronym for that. And we've talked about they are truly the department that is in charge of and responsible for helping these other departments accomplish their missions. So that's gonna require a lot of communication to make sure that those silos do not exist.
And I have one more add. We've used this word, and it was true, the lack of execution at the end of the day. So in the former, in the past form of Public Works, we knew that we had these challenges. So I guess I'm just saying, repeating again, that we know that this is an area of improvement, and we truly believe that the current setup that was approved by council will accomplish that. No other option.
Other comments? Councilor Butler?
First, I want to say thank you for doing this. I appreciate the energy behind it. I appreciate the succinct presentation that include reference to data points. I think in the future it would be great to see those data points as they related to the prior year and also to targets that you might set around them. Just a couple things. This is reiterating a request that was made last year. We are about to embark on tree leaf season. As I think it's pretty commonly known, this has been the source of a lot of conflict over the last couple of seasons. I would highly recommend, in advance of the leaves falling, a rapid improvement event or a focused Kaizen event to evaluate prior performance and to position ourselves for great success this season. I think that's a great opportunity. I think to Councilmember Kern's point about silos, one great way to address that is to map out your processes end to end so everyone knows how they relate to one another. And sometimes the mere act of doing that and then supporting it with measures, dashboards that cover how those processes interact will keep you from having to spend time too much in meetings. There's a kind of a button you can buy out there that says, I've survived another meeting that should have been an email. But it's been my experience that if you frame it related to the process and to measures around those processes and quick daily huddles even or something like that, you can really get a lot of traction fast. Again, I want to compliment you for this work. I really appreciate it, and I think our residents are going to be very happy to see the trend lines start to improve. Thank you.
You are welcome. This has been a priority, and in fact, on the process improvements for the bulk and the brush pickup, we hired a consultant several months ago, and just waiting to actually deliver that to council. The reason that it was held for, I'm going to say, the last 6 or 7 months is because I didn't want to make a pledge to the community that I didn't feel that I was able to deliver. So that day is coming, and appreciate your recognition.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? No, okay. Seeing none, thank you all very much. I look forward to the improvements, and congratulations on a job well done. So next we are moving to city manager's discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a couple of slides. We have Miller Park Adult Center, mature adults 55 or older. This is a very successful program. That's not nice, Mayor. That's not nice at all. And I'm fit part of that. I'm just not mature. So this is a very successful program that Parks and Rec have. So please visit the website, bloomingtonparks.org. Next slide. Family Pumpkin Fun, Sunday, October 22nd, and that's 2 to 3:30. Again, you need to register through bloomingtonparks.org and at Hike Haven. Next slide. August new hires. We have 6 total on the police department. This community truly, and it's not just the police department, that's an excellent department, but we do very well with hiring police officers, which is not the case in many communities. And the thanks is not just to the police department, but to a community that's very supportive of their police department and public safety as a whole, but past councils and this council currently. Duncan is new police officer Jake Logan. Next slide, please. The other 3 are we've got Taylor, Tony, and Tucker. And I think all 6 are scheduled for the academy and actually might have just completed their first week. Next slide. 2 additional new hires. Kimberly is a civil engineer 1, and Matthew is an engineering tech 1. Deputy City Manager Juergens talked about how we've just sort of turned the tide with some of the engineering hires. So we've done very well in that regard as well. And just real quick on hiring. Our approach over the past couple of years, we know that we're in a very competitive market with some of the private employers and some of the other local governments. And our approach to this is if we're not satisfied, we go out again. And sometimes it's taken a 3rd or a 4th time. We've increased our efforts and emphasis on recruitment, and very, very happy with the new hires across the organization. Next slide. And I just had 2 additional comments. Craig Macbeth, I know he's here. He's the director of IT. Just recently had an article in Toggle.com where the focus was on him as the IT director and his team. The efforts, again, thanks to this council, the emphasis that's been placed in the IT department. It was a major priority in working through this over the last couple of years and truly being recognized at a national level. So credit to Craig. And then also right here in this house, Board Teachers is a show that's coming this Sunday on September 24th. Anthony Nelson is the Arts and Entertainment Director under the leadership also of Deputy City Manager Tyus. And it is our first sold-out show in several years. So nearly 1,200 seats are going to be filled in this house on this Sunday. So excited about that. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, and very impressive hires. At this point, I think we're going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Boland. Is there a second? Not all at once.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Hendricks. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, we are adjourned. See you next Monday.